And away we go with another digital exclusive here on YourErie.com. It's the Weather Academy. I'm meteorologist Craig Flint, and today we're talking about the water spouts. Yeah, because the weather pattern we're in right now is actually favorable or conducive for the development of some water spouts. And we're going to kind of give you a little background as to how these form, the different ingredients, and kind of go over some climatology. Because believe it or not, there is a season. So this is a picture, not on our lake, Lake Erie, but a pretty impressive picture of twin water spouts there on Lake Michigan, northern Lake Michigan, Lake Superior. Basically, these can happen on all 5 Great Lakes. Now, the most simplistic answer is this is just a tornado over water. But if you broke it down, really got to the nuts and bolts of these, technically speaking, not really, and I'll explain why. But basically, for our purposes, it's just a tornado over water. So let's dive in and talk about water spouts, because believe it or not, we do have a season for them. And that season begins in August, runs through September and October. Well, we've already been through August. We've been through September. We've had a few reported water spouts, and now we're getting into October. So those are the 3 months that we typically see water spout formation over the Great Lakes. A lot of that has to do with the water temperature, the temperature aloft or above that lake water. And you got to remember that water has a higher heat capacity. In other words, it takes a little bit longer to heat that water up. So even though we've already been through the summer, the peak, or at least the warmest lake temperature, actually occurs right now. But this time of the year, it's not uncommon to get these much cooler outflows of air over that relatively warm lake water. And of course, that leads to lake effect and all these other weather phenomena. Basically, the bottom line here is not just this time of the year, but year-round. The Great Lakes are the main driver of our weather. So, water spouts, most common, August, September, and October. These are predicted 12 to 24 hours ahead of time. And the ideal conditions for them, a light northwest wind, and there has to be some humidity involved as well. These typically only last 10 to 20 minutes. Now 10 is even a little generous. Sometimes these things last like 2. So it really depends on the setup. And these, again, they occur on all 5 of the Great Lakes. So let's break this down. So what is a water spout? Well, I just told you it's basically a tornado over water, but technically there's some finer details. So basically a water spout, a funnel which contains an intense vortex. Sometimes these can be destructive, of small horizontal extent. So there's not much coverage, if you will. And it occurs over a body of water. Now these can be very intense. Remember, it's like the figure skater example, where the figure skater pulls his or her arms in and they spin around faster. That's basically what happens over the Great Lakes. It's these very destructive, small, horizontal scale vortexes that form over the Great Lakes. Now, there are 2 types, a tornadic water spout and a fair weather water spout. That's a little oxymoronic, right? You're thinking fair weather, nah, no big deal. I don't have to worry about water spouts. You can get those water spouts, though, in fair weather, cold air funnels and the like, because there's some differences that are going on between the surface of the lake and the air above the lake, and usually the cloud base has to be pretty low for these to happen. So let's break down each type here. So let's start with a tornadic water spout. What is a tornadic water spout? Well, again, you might be thinking, well, it's a tornado over water, right? So aren't they all tornadic water spouts? Yeah, kind of, but here's the deal. A tornadic water spout That begins as a true tornado associated with a thunderstorm or something like that over land. But as that thunderstorm, which may produce a tornado, moves out over water, well, then that becomes a waterspout, right? So that's what a tornadic waterspout is. Starts on land, usually associated with a thunderstorm, moves out onto the lake, and becomes a waterspout. All right, what about a fair weather waterspout? This is kind of a little bit of a more of a lengthy definition. Forms strictly over water, so there's no land involved with a fair weather waterspout. And they develop from the surface and they climb skyward, okay? So usually you start to see that spiral over the open water, and they actually form from the lake up to the sky. And these are usually small, okay? They're brief, and they're not as dangerous as just your regular run-of-the-mill tornado, but they can be destructive, especially if it's like the reverse of a tornadic waterspout. You know, if a waterspout comes onshore, that can cause some localized damage. It's not as widespread as you would get with like a regular tornado, because when a waterspout comes onshore, it tends to fall apart pretty quickly. But right on the shore, that could cause some issues. These fair weather waterspouts, believe it or not, are the most common type of waterspouts, and we see those again August, September, and October, which is when they typically form. So that's when we talk about waterspouts, at least for our purposes, we're talking about fair weather waterspouts for the most part. It's not all that often that you get a thunderstorm with a tornado that moves out over the lake and then it becomes a waterspout. It's usually just a fair weather waterspout that develops over the water. So that's kind of the difference and the definition of the two types, the tornadic waterspout and your fair weather waterspout. Let's take this a little bit of a step further and discuss the ingredients. We kind of did that already, but warm water temperatures. Water temperatures in the 60s, upper 60s, and you need a nice flow of moist, cold air over that relatively warm lake. And the wind speeds, at least here at the surface, have to be fairly light. And mainly out of the northwest, but they can form on a southwest wind as well. So that kind of induces this circulation, this vortex over the water, because you have the lake water, okay, and then the air up here is much colder. So as that convergence happens, that's usually when you get the spin-ups here with the water spouts. And it is more common to see that type of development as you get into the transitional months, late summer and into the fall, as that colder air comes racing over the lake, which again is still relatively warm. Water temperature is still in the mid-upper 60s right now, and we have much cooler air filtering over the lake right now. So that's what we're going to be watching as we head through the rest of this week, actually, the potential for some water spouts. So if you're a mariner or you have a boat or you're out on the open water and you see a water spout, or it may take you by surprise, what should you do? Well, the first thing is have a NOAA weather radio. Those come in real handy, because if they issue a special marine warning, you get this annoying tone that comes out, and that is kind of going to alert you that, hey, something's afoot here, and I should probably tune in and listen. When there are water spouts, you get what's called a special marine warning, and there's a lot of great resources for this on the National Weather Service website, www.weather.gov, or you could just Google water spouts, National Weather Service, and it'll link you right to a page that has all kinds of great information on water spouts and the Great Lakes. So special marine warnings. Now these could be issued for thunderstorms or choppy waters or whatever. So every time there's a special marine warning, it's not like there's going to be a water spout, but it's something that should make you perk up and pay attention and take them seriously. If you're out there, even though water spouts are weaker than an actual tornado, if you're out there in the middle of the lake and you get a water spout, your small craft, that could capsize real easily. So that's why you need to take them seriously. And these special marine warnings, what they do is it's not like a tornado warning that's so localized and zeroes in on one area. When they issue special marine warnings, it usually covers a large geographic area. It could cover the shoreline from Cleveland right up to Erie, PA, or Ripley, New York. So special marine warnings, that's your key. That when you hear that term, that's when you need to pay special attention to what that warning is for, where it's for, how long it's in effect for, because if you get out there and there's a thunderstorm over the water, it's very possible that it could produce a water spout. So we are into that season now where water spouts will become and are becoming more common on the Great Lakes. Again, they happen on all 5 of the Great Lakes. They're usually brief, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes. They're a little weaker than actual tornadoes, but they still can cause localized damage. They still can be destructive right there on the shoreline. So make sure you listen to NOAA Weather Radio, or if you have alerts that come through on your phone, that's another good resource. You can check out all of this information on the weather page at www.weather.gov. And as we get out there and enjoy the last vestiges of some nice weather on the Great Lakes that are ever so important to us, not just for us as meteorologists, but for you to enjoy, you need to be mindful that this time of the year, water spouts do become an issue. So that's just kind of a quick background on water spouts. We'll be watching for that as we head through the month of October, as we get more of that cooler air coming over that relatively warm lake. So that's going to do it for Weather Academy this Wednesday. We'll be back next week with another edition. If you have anything that you'd like us to cover, anything that you want us to kind of dive into and dissect a little more, or something that you've always had a question about, let us know. weather@wjettv.com. That's the email address. I'm meteorologist Craig Flint. We'll see you next time.